saying, can you just get me the next page, please? Well, the web service has got to remember what your previous page is. Where were you up to? So it's maintaining a little state of your previous page. It calculates your next page, returns the next page to you, and updates what the next page was to the previous page, and all that sort of thing, does some sort of update to it. So you get sent back some sort of response, whether it's HTML or JSON doesn't actually sort of really matter. But that server's having to keep hold of what your state is. And as I say, you start to replicate the server, then you're into this sort of problem. Everybody having to remember where you're up to. Whereas in a stateless one, you can say, I just want page 2. You don't say, get me the next page. You get explicit about what you want. You don't say, get me the next page. I want page 2. Or I want page 18 to it, out of this. So the client explicitly says which sort of piece of data they want. And the client keeps a bit of a sort of check for that. You get an explicit page request. And the web service can then say, okay, I'll go off and get page 2 and send them back whatever page 2 is. But then the server can just forget about them. And say, okay, right, I've given you page 2 to you. I'm not maintaining any state for you. I'm sort of off to it. So the client's including that actual page number in the request. Makes a bit of a different type of request that you have to do. Different approach. Remember, this is sort of the client's being written by another coder. So it makes an effect on somebody writing the server side and on the client side about what you have to maintain for this. But it's just one of the problems, particularly with scaling up for that. So the other thing you might sort of send back in your server response is a bit of extra info that they may possibly need, like where the next page actually is going to be. If you send back page 2, then send back a reference to where page 3 is, or where page 1 is, the page before and things, so that they can then build them up. The client can then build it up in their next request, if you like. What it's doing is trying to decide whether some of these sort of things are cacheable as well, and trying to reduce the number of requests so that the client can sort of remember where it's been through, and by manipulation of your cache control, you can decide which ones you actually do need to make the request for. So that's that cache control, your server saying whether or not to remember your resources. To it you can do things like conditional gets, dependent on date of the things sort of getting through. So it's different in terms of that sort of stateful thing to it. And the third one is this idea of sending the actual parameters over to it, and it uses this directory-like structure to invoke the requests. And there's sort of self-documented interfaces to this. It looks like you're getting to some particular area of, say, a disk or something. Like you may be used to in whatever sort of operating systems. You'll have something like user nick / documents / MMU / enterprise programming / week 5 / SOAP or something like that. And you've organised your documents in a nice little hierarchical tree structure. And I know a lot of people sort of do this. I've seen this when I'm sort of walking around and people are locating their work and they've neatly sort of stashed them away to it. Now it uses this sort of idea because really these are almost like parameters. They're saying, okay, we'll set off at the top and you'll find something called nick there, and then underneath that you'll find something called documents, and underneath that you'll find something called MMU to it. I mean, it could be along the lines of find user, top equals nick, and level 1 equals documents, and level 2 is institution, or something like that, or university. So you're passing in sort of parameters as a URL to sort of find something. And this is the idea behind a directory like URI for something. And you'll often will see this in a URL, and you'll sort of think of them a bit differently, hopefully, after today. You'll see some of these things and look at them and think, that's a whacking great big URL for something, for it seems sort of overlong. So you might have something along the lines of saying, well, okay, I've got some sort of service, and it might be some sort of discussion topic, some discussion that's been going on over the years, say discussion 2015, 12, 10, sort of topic, makes it look like, again, the other side, it's probably all neatly arranged in sort of subfolders. But what this sort of typically is supplying parameters. If the other side says, look, if anybody ever asks for a discussion, then the next few things are parameters. The first one being the year, the next one being the day, the next one being the month, the next one being the topic. And if you know that that's the format of it, that you are effectively saying, okay, open the discussion program at the other side with the parameter year equals 2015, day equals 12, month equals 10, then you've got the old HTTP type interface to getting into it. It's just supplying the data in a different format. It's using these slash symbols between, not necessarily to indicate where the resource is, but what the actual parameters are to get there. And again, it looks strange at first. You think, why do I bother doing that when I can do it the other way? Yeah, you can do it the other way. Why do we use an HTTP when you could have used SOAP to it? You know, we had the same sort of argument between moving between different ways of invoking these. These ones are just proved to be more quick, a lot sort of quicker at actually invoking the methods at the other side, and less sort of problems with what actually is sort of being done. So we're trying to do things like hide the server-side scripting technology, so you're not saying run a class file, or run a JDO for it, or run a PHP program. Again, those things are often illustrated in some people's URLs. You have run this on the server, some question mark dot PHP. So you have a URL with the PHP file actually indicated in the URL, and then you're question marking the things. So straight away, in some ways, people know exactly what sort of server-side program you're running, and possibly then something about what the sort of architecture is. You're giving people a little bit of a look into what's sort of happening to it. So we hide the server-side scripting technology extension by so that, well, if anything, you can port it to something else without changing the URI as well for it. Use things like all lowercase, no spaces, all these sort of other ones. Avoid query strings where you can. For it, those name-value pairs, you tend to build it into the URI itself for it. So there's a few sort of guidelines to doing it. And the final one, send your data in JSON, XML, or both to it. Because typically it's going over as like a block of data after it, like if it's a get or a put, whatever. It's sending the data as a separate sort of block for it. So for document retrieval or something, you send the data across either in XML or JSON, however it might look like. But different MIME types will describe the different types that are available for it. So if you are building a RESTful server, you do have to implement all those four methods. No being lazy inside your Tomcat and just implementing a single do-get that implements everything. You have to implement post, get, put, and delete for it. Java does support this using this JAX-RS. Java API for RESTful services called Jersey, sometimes as it's, you might sort of see it written out as the word Jersey, if you're sort of looking for it. And uses annotations to try and define what to do. which particular method to sort of invoke. Now, when you do the lab session, you'll see that you've got a lot of these annotations specifying where the method is at the other side to sort of go to for it. So Jersey contains both sides, the API. It contains a server-side set of methods and a client-side set of methods, because a client has got to do these things in a RESTful way. It's not just like the server that has to change its ways, it's the client invoking it. Just like the client invoking it had to sort of set up the parameter calls for HTTP. It's been hidden from us in the past by using a browser. It became a bit more explicit when you started using Ajax and you had to sort of build that sort of URL up yourself. But you still sort of had to do it manually. We had some sort of tools to help us in the browser, or maybe things like jQuery to help us. And it's the same sort of thing when you're doing RESTful ones. There's tools to help you. Initially, we have a look at what the actual sort of calls are, and then start to use these library tools to help communicate with the server, to help pick up what the client's requesting from us. So it's not always the right choice. It's just become very, very sort of popular for it, particularly with highly scalable systems. So you may not come across it as much.